Welcome, everybody. This is Chris Hill, and this is Market to Market. I'm here with
Chris Drewer, and we have today James Sharpe from the great state of Texas.
welcome,
Right.
James. Welcome.
Good to be here, guys.
So we started. Chris and I talked when we first started planning this thing out, and one of the things we said is, we want to think of some people across the country that we could bring in and talk about different markets everywhere. And he immediately said, "I got this guy in Texas, James. You need to talk to James." So, James, why don't you, if it's okay, we've already given our spiel. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
No problem. Thank you, Chris and Chris. So Chris twice, I guess. James Sharpe in Dallas, Texas. I'm a EXP agent. Been in industry though for 22 years. So been selling seems like all my life, but just really all in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I have an office in Plano, Texas, which is North Dallas suburb, and I have a lot of experience selling to investors, also first-time home buyers, but also a lot of new construction. So it's kind of a mix of those three are kind of the big buckets of where I serve. So, and I run it also a shoe charity. So whenever we sell a house here in Dallas, we also get some kids into some new kicks as needed. So for every house I sell, I buy 12 pairs of new shoes and put kids in shoes who can't afford it. So it's like kind of a way to give back and serve our local community a little deeper.
All right, that's man, that's really cool. So say let's talk about that a little bit more if that's okay. Like, so
Sure.
you every transaction you do, you buy 12 pairs of shoes
Yeah,
for kids that need shoes.
absolutely. I've converted my game room upstairs into like those small Payless shoe store. So I have boys and girls segregated, all the sizes, from the small little tykes up to the big boy and big girls shoes. And it's quite the ordeal because there's all these different sizing of shoes depending on the kids and their feet sizes. So like last week I helped middle school. They need about 50 pairs of shoes. These are
Wow.
all big boys and big girls. So sizes 5, 6, 7, young men and young women up to size 10, 11, 12, even some of those for the big boys. So it's a joy. We serve a lot of Title I schools in our local community. So that Title I means they're below the poverty line. So a lot of times the districts will bus in the students, give them free lunch, give them fast packs on the weekend so they have stuff to eat. But a lot of times will show up at school and they can't really do group sports or participate in any recess or activities because they don't have shoes. And so we make sure these kids have athletic shoes, and we're coming up into the best time of year for kids to really need the shoes is, with the back to school and also around Christmas time. So that's our big draws. And it's our events too, because I've been doing a long established business. Whenever I do a little client event, we're going to do a Santa Claus event in December. We have cookies with Santa Claus, so you can come have pictures with Santa Claus. But we also ask the families, hey, by the way, when you're coming, bring the little ones, bring a couple of pairs of shoes too, so we can give it to other kids.
Nice.
And then, so
I feel completely worthless right now. Just so you know.
I told you it was gonna be a tall order. If we bring one, it's
yeah,
gonna make us look bad.
Oh man, that is awesome. So what, since we're talking about that and we haven't gone into, we haven't talked a bit about the market, but that's okay. So James, what did you, and I'm confiscating the interview again, Chris, just so you know. No, and what made you what made that become a passion for you? What happened?
yeah. So I grew up in Flint, Michigan. So I didn't grow up in Texas. I relocated to Texas in 2000. But before that, I grew up in a really rough area. Flint is known for their #1 homicide city of the country. So if you ever check out Flint Town on Netflix, it talks about every day there's homicides every night. And that's where I grew up. So growing up in a rough area, where people would make fun of you based on your skin color, based on your economics, social, I got beat up mercilessly to the point where somebody really didn't like us so much and they set our house on fire with us inside it, called it arson. The fire chief, when they responded with the fire truck, said, hey, your front door was barricaded, your back door was barricaded. My mom got us out with this, just the clothes on our back.
Wow.
And when you don't have much to begin with and you lose a little bit you do have, it just kind of puts you in perspective. But fast forward to that Christmas, we were going to not have a Christmas really because we lost everything in a house fire. We were staying in motels, staying in the back of my dad's workshop. He repaired televisions back then. And, we just didn't have 2 nickels put together. And somebody told the Shriners men's service group about our family. And the guys with big hats, big footy tassels come in,
Right.
barrels of men, giant men. I, answered the door, mama, there's some guys out front here. And they said they want to talk to you. She goes, well, what? And it was a couple of days for Christmas, and they brought in a Christmas tree, brought a bunch of presents, brought in a bunch of clothes and toys, and they brought each of us kids a pair of shoes. And Chris, I never forgot what that felt like to have a pair of new shoes for the first time, because I had my cousin's hand-me-downs. And when you have the duct tape specials, because they don't fit so well, and JT wore his shoes out like crazy, my older cousin, I got what was just this barely excusable excuse of a shoe. So when I had these new Converse, and I'll never forget, it was like yesterday, I just remember I felt 10 foot like a new kid. And so I went to school after Christmas break and showed everybody my shoes, my clothes, and I got kind of treated differently. It was really wild. And fast forward a number of years later, when I have some affluency, I kind of buy a few pairs of shoes. I started connecting, Chris, with that new feeling of a pair of new shoes, and it brought me back to my little 6-year-old James. And I said, interesting. As luck would have it, my broker was doing a little thing with a group, little runaway shelter in Dallas, actually in Plano. It's called City House, and they were doing a gala that weekend. And the broker, he's like, hey, we do Secret Santa. We got this big gala to raise the money. You should come be my guest. And I heard story after story of all these kids, the runaways taken off streets, put into, education programs, got them into work job programs. They got them into new clothes, new shoes, new outfits. They got them some training. They fed them and stuff. And the director of the gala that night said, hey, one of our biggest needs in this area is for shoes. And then it just connected. And all of a sudden I said, I could do that. And
Nice.
So I called her the next day. I said, hey, couldn't help but hear you said you guys need shoes. And she goes, oh my God, this is so amazing. We just finished meeting with our team. I told the directors we need 80 pairs of kids' shoes. And we had a great gala and we raised a bunch of money, but how are we going to get these kids in these shoes? And I said, well, I'll do it. And next thing you know, Chris, I'm going to buy 80 pairs of shoes at a local Walmart. I never bought that many shoes in my life, let alone kids and boys and girls sizes. And I just told her, hey, give me the sizes, how many you need. And a couple of days later, I show up at their city house, their little halfway home, if you will. And I met the director, gave all the shoes. And she was, oh my God, this is a godsend. And it lifted me up, Chris, to the point where then I said, well, I wonder who else needs shoes. And I just kind of put it out grassroots style. That December, we helped over 500 kids get in some shoes that December. And this was 2018. And the more you give it out in slices, the more it comes back in loaves. I started getting really filled up where, I kind of really had this calling, if you will. And then I talked to Mom after I did all this delivery, because I've been, using social media. I was leveraging my relationships, folks like Chris and everyone else heard about it. And, hey, here's $100, go buy some shoes, whatever. I got my air conditioning guy, my plumber, everybody pitching in, and we bought all these shoes. So it's not just James, it's other people that were donating or dropping by at the office some shoes. And I said, Mama, I guess, I know what the Shriners Men's Service Group felt like when they delivered Christmas to us all those years ago, 1976. She goes, oh my gosh, that's right. And I said, I remember what it felt like to have those new shoes. I've just done that 500 times now, and I'm lifted up. And she goes, that is so great. I'm so proud of you. A couple of hours later, Chris, she has a massive stroke, and I unfortunately have to bury Mom about 6 weeks after that conversation. So the last conversation, because a stroke is a very debilitating thing, you lose your speech, and she was not able to communicate. The last conversation was about the shoes. And so as I was sitting over on her last breath, I told her, hey, I'm going to continue to do this, and I'm going to make you proud for doing it.
Wow.
And 5 years later, over 32,000 kids have shoes now because of one little incident where somebody who didn't know my family, never saw them again, blessed us and our family with some shoes. I got to pay it forward kind of in a big way.
Man, that is
Amazing.
That's amazing. That's a great, yeah, that's the right word. That's absolutely amazing, man. Kudos to you and that story, man. That's heartfelt. I get it. That's so I'm glad I asked that question. Wow, it's like weird how like, I didn't even I just wanted to dig deeper on it for some reason.
There's
And
always a reason. There's always something. Somebody
yeah.
goes through something that causes quite a chain reaction of stuff. And as they always, Terry Robbins says the best at the doorway of the intersection of life, there's a major choice made. And I chose to go through it and make something out of it. I could have easily become the victim. Hey, people don't like me. They try to kill me and my family, or change the story and like, hey, I'll become the victor and I'll embrace everybody. I don't care your skin color. I don't care your ethnicity, your background, economics. I bless all kinds of families, whether African American, Latino, it doesn't matter, white, black, it doesn't matter. And what's cool about these schools and these churches and outreach programs is they all have one common denominator. They all desperately need shoes, Chris, and it is such a epidemic that's all over the country. In fact, I bet you money if I go into Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm looking at charities that are collecting donations, there'll always be a bin somewhere that will say, hey, clothes, and right next to it, printed in big letters, says shoes every single time. They cannot get enough shoes ever. So if people watch this, say, hey, what can I do? I don't know what I could do. Hey, hurricane victims, I don't know what I could do. Hey, get these kids some shoes, man. I promise you, they're desperate and going to need it.
So how
One thing you will never forget about James is his shoes he wears, which I think ties in really well because then the whole Sharpe shoes, the shoes
Yeah.
he wears, like you never forget his passion because when
Yeah.
you see him, I've never seen him in the same
My
nice.
spot.
pair of shoes, they're just,
I've never
they're
seen
not
him in
your
the
average.
same. I don't think I've ever seen you in the same pair of shoes
No,
ever.
you haven't. I'm very intentional with that. But the shoes I wear, they're kind of a fun statement, but they're my shtick. But they open up the conversation wherever I
Yeah,
go. I was in Scottsdale, Arizona last week around a bunch of real estate agents. And what separates me from all these other agents was definitely my shoes. The footwear kind of as we started, a lot of people came up to me, hey, man, I love those shoes and stuff. And how's the mission going? How's your shoe charity going? It just kind of starts that conversation and kind of makes it a little different. And it's wild because as we go back into why we're talking market stuff, my business has really quadrupled since we've done the shoe foundation over the
Wow.
last 5 years. I don't do it for that, but it's neat to see the byproduct of that.
right.
So how can anybody who's watching, how can they help right now? Like seriously, how can we ask, what can we ask of people that are watching to, how do they contribute? How do they help? What's the best way to do that?
Well, there's a couple ways to do it. I'm actually kicking off the month of October. It's my birthday month, so I have a birthday in a few weeks. So I always put a Facebook, campaign together that kicks off this afternoon. But also they can go to sharpshoes.org. So sharpshoes.org,
Okay.
or you can find me on Facebook, James Sharpe, Plano, Texas. And Facebook will have an ability they could do through the little fundraising I do. Because I said, hey, man, I don't need more shoes. I don't need anything, but I can definitely say, hey, instead send monies to my foundation. When anything gets donated, I immediately use that money instead and go buy more shoes. So
Nice.
that's and pay it forward.
That's probably the best story I think we could ever start it out with, Chris. Like for
I told you. Hey, I told you. Asked me for
yeah,
someone, and I
you're
said
right
I know.
on. You're right
I
on.
know
That's
someone
good.
in real estate, and I know someone who has a really good story. And it really, the good thing about it too is it really lets the. I don't think the public understands like some of the things that realtors do, to give back. I think that's a
Yeah.
perception that we need to be better at. We don't like to tell it because we don't do it for a reason. We do it like you said for it's self gratifying. Yeah, so it's not something you don't want to go out and tell everything you do and make it that the reason that you do it. But I think we hardly ever tell the story about the things that we do. Yeah, and there's a
Yeah,
lot of people like James to do stuff.
we talked about that recently. We had our conference in Ocean City. Remember the guy with the widows and widows.
Yeah, that was amazing. I had no idea about him
Nobody
until I
has
was.
any clue that he does that. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
this guy, he created an organization that helps widows and widowers get through the experience, and he's a realtor and all, and it's it's a group that he gets together and just supports, and it brought tears to my eyes. You know what I mean? Like it's
That was,
really
that was
touching. And what you do is I love the passion in it, right? You can see it. You like it
Right.
freaking exudes from you, you know? But
Well, and the need is great. I've been servicing some of these schools for the last 5 years solid every year. In fact, I just helped Nurse Rachel. She's a sweetheart. She's a staff at a local school district, Llewellyn ISD, but she reached out to me again and said, "Hey, I got all these kids," and she, as a staff person, she'll have all these kids coming into her nurse's office. A lot of times, guys, they don't have any shoes on. They'll be wearing basic flip flops or anything like that. Sometimes they have accidents, they get whatever, and so she outfits them with some clothes, and it's such a neat deal. But up to this point, she's always done that out of her own pocketbook. And you
yeah,
can imagine on a teacher's salary, spending a bunch of money for
yeah,
clothes and shoes and socks and underwear and all that stuff, it can be a little bit costly. And so I bless her with a couple hundred pairs of shoes, and they actually have now kind of made a thrift store so more of the district can take advantage of it. And I've done that with Frisco schools and Plano schools, and now Louisville and Lowell. These are all suburbs of the North Dallas area, where parents can go into their little thrift closet with an appointment or sometimes on the right day, and then they can get out their kids a whole outfit or two along with pairs of shoes, so that they don't feel embarrassed to go to school, and that they can actually feel like their kids are like every other kid in there and stuff, which is, it's such a neat give back. I just love it because
yeah,
I've been in those shoes. I lived on welfare and food stamps and come from that nothing, having nothing. So when you get a pair of shoes, and shoes these days, 30-40 bucks easy, a pair. And if you got, 2 or 3 kids, that could be prohibitive for
yeah, for
struggling.
sure.
I mean, it's like your foundation. You don't have a house without a foundation. Your shoes
Yeah.
are your foundation for your body.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, all right, let's get down to the other part of this that we thought
Sure.
we'd be talking about, and it sounds so. Are you in Dallas, or where are you? What's your marketplace?
I'm in Dallas proper, so I've been in this market now for over 22 years. So last 2 decades, I've seen tremendous growth in that, North Dallas and particularly Dallas Fort Worth. The Metroplex is one of the biggest markets that we have in the country for housing, and it's the #1 market for new home sales. So we get more new homes sold in Dallas than anywhere else in the country, more than Houston, Austin, San Antonio, all those things. It's just because we have a very rarely availability of land. So we have quite expansive. We're not landlocked like some of the East Coast, West Coast, parts of the country where maybe mountain ranges or there are only so much. I was just in Phoenix, so it's kind of like a basin in the middle of mountains, and we just keep going. We just keep expressing it down to go up to north to Sherman, Denison, up to the Oklahoma border, all the way south to Waxahachie and so forth. But we got the highest concentration builders also because we have a really good labor pool and the cost of goods are fairly inexpensive. Land is pretty inexpensive. It also creates a tremendous opportunity for these builders to build a great product. And I was talking to a lady in California yesterday. She goes, "Well, how much is a new home running these days?" And I'm like, "Well, it depends, but 350, 400, I can get you in a brand new 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, about 2,000 square foot. That's nicely appointed with granite, quartz, hardwoods and stuff." And her eyes, "What?" I'm like, "I know." Because in California, that would be like over $1 million,
Right.
type of thing.
Yeah, you can't touch that here either, where I am in Southern
Yeah,
Maryland. That's like, not new construction. I think they're, minimum, like, and we're more to four in the rural area where I am in Southern Maryland. And I would say
sure.
really 500 if you're lucky,
If
on
you're
new
lucky, yeah.
construction. Yeah. And that's going to be like probably a townhouse of some sort.
500, I get you a mansion here, 4,000 square foot, 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, game room, living room.
That's it. I'm getting new shoes and I'm coming to Texas.
There you go. Come to Dallas, man. Mars warm. We love it. No state income tax plays into it. We've got Dallas Fort Worth Airport. It's a kind of a central. It's American Airlines hub. So I would say to most of my folks, East Coast or West Coast, Dallas has always been a very popular relocation spot. So we do a lot of relocation. In fact, we're the #1 state for relocations from California, from Arizona. I've moved people from Oregon, Washington State, all along the Pacific Northwest, just because no state income tax. We got the wonderful, I call it weather that's more conducive, versus the rain in Seattle or the super hot in Phoenix or something like that, or the earthquakes in SoCal or something like that. Yeah, we do have our little nuances, but our market has been very robust, guys. I mean, I'm talking about steady. We don't have the bubbles. We don't have the downfalls, we've been just steady Eddie and stuff as long as I've been doing it for 2 decades. So,
Wow. Yeah, and that's definitely a blessing. Are you so is there a lot of competition for it? It sounds like you actually have some inventory happening, like some new construction and stuff. Here in Southern Maryland, we have hardly any new construction. I don't care what anybody says here. There's hardly any. And so there's obviously there's a rush when a nice house comes on the market, and there's competition that's
sure.
a little ridiculous at some point. And I think Chris, you have similar situations there, in your area, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty tapped out. It's hard to find developments. They're small developments when they do come up now. Except for I would say as you go west in Maryland, it gets better. And then maybe down in they were really developing Anne Arundel, like Glen
Right.
Burnie area. But it's so competitive because now people who live and work in DC may even come up that far to live, and that's what you get too. I guess is some of your market that too, or
Yeah.
Prince Frederick would be. Prince Frederick's
No,
definitely.
we get people here. We have a Navy base, a base here that supports a lot of our housing issues. But honestly, you're right. We are on the cusp. I mean, some of the Charles County, for example, they come out of DC to work, and it's not that far for them, honestly. And like you said, right up Route 4. Route 4 is Pennsylvania Avenue, so it goes. It's Pennsylvania Avenue extended. You're right into DC with it, but. We definitely have those struggles, but I find that are you having those kinds of like that kind of competition, James?
We are, especially if it's under 400 or 500,000. That entry level for a first-time home buyer can be very competitive. We're still seeing a lot of multiple offer situations, especially if a house is in tip-top shape, condition well, priced aggressively. We're still seeing a lot of multiple offers. It seems like the stuff from like 5 to 800,000 is a little bit slow. We're seeing some of those, and put it in perspective, in a given day, you might see 400 or 500 price drops. We're seeing about 4 or 5,000 price drops in a 24-hour period. So we're definitely seeing a little pullback, and I would say the majority of those tend to be right kind of in that 400 to 800,000 range. I mean, well over 50% of those price drops are in that range. Things over $1 million, are still selling very good, believe it or not, because it seems like those who have the fluency to pay, for $1 million house, $2 million house, most of those are cash deals. If you look in our market, well over 50% of those sales, when you look at it, are cash. So they're not affected by the interest rates. They don't really have
Right.
too concerning. And if it's in a desirable area, like some of our areas like Highland Park, University Park, or South Lake, Texas, Westlake, Keller, Colleyville around the airport, those tend to be very driven by high demand because you got excellent schools, exemplary school districts. You're close to city centers, airport for one over there in South Lake. And also then you got some of the best, kind of legacy, I call it, the Friday night lights, with the football programs, gymnastic programs, sports programs. I mean, everything sports here you could ever ask for. Dallas has it going on because we got all the major sports teams, covered, and, America's team, much as I hate that we lost to the Ravens a couple weekends ago, we hats off to you guys. Good game. But no, Jerry, and what's developed in Arlington, which is in between Dallas and Fort Worth, is kind of another mecca there. And then you probably guys have heard maybe, but North Dallas, where I'm at, North Frisco, they're building a new Universal Studios for kids. So
Right.
where they made the PJ tournament and the PJ headquarters next door to Jerry's training facility at the Star is, we call it like the $1 billion mile on the tollway. It's like every mile there's billions of infrastructure and development that's going
Wow.
in. It's all the way up through Frisco and Prosper and so forth. And that Universal Studio, they broke ground on that. So they're anticipating having that end of 2025, 26. going up for business, and that's going to be another game changer. Thousands of employees, all this new development. I mean, it's constant, just go, go, go. Seems
That's pretty awesome too. I mean, it is interesting. That's one reason I did this or wanted to do this is because I like to hear what's going on in other cities across the country,
sure.
other areas, right? Especially real estate, because I find that everybody talks about real estate.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, everybody talks about it.
it does.
If you're
Yeah.
involved or not, somebody's always talking about what's going on there and what's happening and
What's happening in the market. I get that call
Yeah.
every 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I mean, every 3 or 4 days, I get probably a dozen calls like that. So yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
and it's all related too. You know what I mean? Like, you have people who don't want development, people who do, and you got all sorts of those kinds of conversations. We have a lot of NIMBYism, not in my backyard here. We've got a lot of that here in Southern Maryland, but they've already got their place, so they don't want to share it with anybody else.
Yeah.
But this is I appreciate this. I think thank you for coming on. It's enlightening, man, and I appreciate you and give you a lot of credit. That's really cool what you're doing, man. And I think we can all take a lesson from that.
Well, I just say
James is the man.
It just starts with one. I mean, just do a little something. I always get agents all the time. Well, what can I do? I'm like, well, it doesn't mean like you have to do 1,000 shoes or something, but just go get a couple pair of shoes, drop it off at a shelter. You'd be shocked how received well it is and stuff there, because they just don't get it and stuff there. And to me, when I see that little girl gets pairs of shoes, and then she goes, hey, can my little brother have a pair too? I can get them both, brother and sister, a pair of shoes, and they'll light up in their face and stuff there because they got these little sparkly Skechers shoes that light up. I'm like, that's worth it right there, guys.
Nice.
Worth all the late nights and all the price adjustments, and you can't get this deal, and working with a appraiser that doesn't want to make the value to having challenges of oh my gosh, the agent left the door unlocked and close it, whatever, all the challenges of real estate, to say, yeah, that's worth it.
Well, look, thank you for what you do. And I think with that, Chris and I are going to we're trying to be consistent and do this stuff every week. And I'm so glad we had you on, James. That's just such a cool thing. So unless you have anything else, I will end with that. Is that okay?
We're good to go, guys. Have a great day, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks a lot, dude. Thanks, James.